Why do millions of people across every culture suddenly freeze when they see 11:11 on their clocks? You've felt it too, that inexplicable magnetic pull, that sense of cosmic significance washing over you in those synchronized moments. Modern spirituality calls it coincidence or wishful thinking, but they've missed something profound. This phenomenon isn't New Age fantasy. It's an ancient Egyptian communication system, deliberately encoded by Thoth, the god who gave humanity writing, mathematics, and the hermetic principles that govern reality itself. In the pyramid texts and Book of Coming Forth by Day, Egyptian scribes documented how numerical synchronicities serve as divine transmissions, marking souls ready for advanced consciousness work. Thoth, the architect of sacred geometry and keeper of universal laws, embedded 11:11 as a spiritual activation sequence. When you notice these numbers, you're not experiencing random coincidence. You're receiving a direct communication from one of history's greatest minds, signaling that your consciousness has reached a threshold for receiving deeper truths about reality, time, and your soul's purpose. The specific meaning Thoth encoded in 11:11 will reshape how you understand your spiritual journey. When we think about the profound intelligence behind ancient Egyptian civilization, we often marvel at their architectural achievements, the pyramids, the temples, the precision of their astronomical alignments. But there's something far more sophisticated at work here, something that modern archaeology has barely begun to understand. The Egyptians weren't just building monuments, they were encoding an entire communication system into the fabric of reality itself. Thoth, known to the Egyptians as Jehuti, wasn't simply another deity in their pantheon. He was the architect of human consciousness as we know it. Ancient texts credit him with giving humanity our first written language, establishing the mathematical principles that govern everything from music to architecture, and most importantly, creating what we now call hermetic wisdom, the understanding that mind and matter are intimately connected. Here's where it gets fascinating. Egyptian priests understood something about numbers that we're only beginning to rediscover through quantum physics. They didn't see numbers as mere counting tools or abstract mathematical concepts. To them, numbers were vibrational frequencies, specific energetic signatures that could literally bridge the gap between the physical world and spiritual dimensions. Think about how we use numbers today versus how they understood them. We see the number 11 and think 11 items or 11 o'clock. But Egyptian initiates saw 11 as a living frequency, a specific vibration that represented the pillars of duality, the twin towers of consciousness that every awakening soul must navigate. When you see 11:11, you're not just noticing a time, you're encountering 4 of these consciousness pillars arranged in perfect symmetry. This is Thoth's most elegant design. The 11:11 pattern creates what ancient Egyptian texts describe as a gateway of recognition, a moment when the veil between dimensions becomes thin enough for higher consciousness to communicate with incarnated souls. The repetition isn't accidental, it's a mathematical signature, specifically designed to catch the attention of minds ready for spiritual advancement. Let me share something remarkable about Egyptian temple architecture that most people never notice. If you study the measurements of temples like Karnak or the proportions of the Great Pyramid, you'll find these numerical patterns embedded everywhere. The spacing between columns, the height-to-width ratios, the positioning of sacred chambers, all of it incorporates multiples of 11 and patterns that mirror the 11:11 sequence. The priests who designed these structures understood that consciousness responds to mathematical harmony. They built these temples as giant tuning forks, literally calibrated to activate specific states of awareness in anyone who entered them. When you walk through these sacred spaces, your brainwaves would naturally synchronize with the mathematical frequencies encoded in the architecture. Modern neuroscience is finally catching up to what Egyptian initiates knew thousands of years ago. Recent studies show that when people repeatedly notice 11:11, their brainwave patterns actually shift toward what researchers call heightened coherent states, moments when different regions of the brain begin communicating with unusual clarity and synchronization. But here's what makes this even more intriguing. Quantum physicists are discovering that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it actively participates in creating it. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrates that the mere act of conscious observation changes how particles behave at the quantum level. Egyptian priests called this principle as above, so below, and they understood that focused attention could literally reshape the fabric of experience. Thoth embedded these 1111 triggers throughout human experience as activation codes for dormant spiritual faculties. When you notice 1111, something shifts in your consciousness, not because of superstition or wishful thinking, but because your awareness is literally tuning into a frequency that Thoth designed to awaken higher perception. The mathematical properties of this pattern are extraordinary. 4 ones create perfect symmetry, but they also represent the 4 elements, the 4 directions, the 4 chambers of the heart in Egyptian spiritual anatomy. It's a holographic code where each element contains the whole, and the whole is reflected in each part. What's particularly sophisticated about Thoth's system is how it adapts to modern life. Ancient Egyptians might have encountered these patterns through temple ceremonies or astronomical observations, but Thoth embedded the codes so deeply into the mathematical structure of existence that they manifest through our digital clocks, license plates, receipts, anywhere numbers appear in daily life. Some of Thoth's most profound numerical codes are actually too sensitive to share publicly on platforms like YouTube, but we reveal these advanced patterns exclusively in our free Insights Academy newsletter. Subscribers also receive a complimentary copy of the Kybalion, the foundational text of Hermetic wisdom, for a limited time. These deeper mathematical keys can accelerate your spiritual development exponentially when understood correctly. The beauty of recognizing 1111 lies in understanding that you're not just witnessing a coincidence, you're participating in an ancient communication protocol that connects you directly with one of history's most advanced spiritual intelligences. Each time you notice this pattern, you're proving to Thoth that your consciousness is developing the sensitivity required for higher teachings. This recognition marks a crucial threshold in spiritual development. It's Thoth's way of identifying souls who are ready to move beyond surface-level existence and begin engaging with the deeper mechanics of reality. You're demonstrating that your awareness has evolved enough to detect patterns that most people miss entirely. The question becomes, what happens next? Once Thoth has confirmed that your consciousness is awakening to these mathematical communications, how does he determine whether you're ready for the more advanced stages of spiritual initiation? The answer reveals one of the most fascinating aspects of his selection process for souls prepared to receive ancient wisdom. Here's something that might shake your understanding of reality. Not everyone sees 1111. I'm not talking about the occasional glance at a clock. I mean the persistent, almost magnetic pull that draws certain people to notice these numbers repeatedly. If you're watching this, chances are you're one of the chosen few, and there's a profound reason why. Thoth operates as the cosmic librarian of human consciousness. Think of him as maintaining what we might recognize today as the Akashic records, an infinite database of every soul's journey across countless lifetimes. But unlike a passive record keeper, Thoth actively monitors the evolutionary progress of each consciousness, tracking spiritual development with the precision of a master mathematician. He knows which souls have accumulated enough wisdom, faced sufficient challenges, and developed the necessary discernment to handle advanced spiritual teachings. The 1111 phenomenon isn't random cosmic static, it's a deliberate selection process. When Thoth identifies a soul that has reached a critical threshold of spiritual maturity, he begins transmitting these numerical sequences as recognition signals. It's similar to how ancient Egyptian mystery schools would identify potential initiates, except now the mystery school operates across dimensional boundaries, and the initial contact happens through the language of numbers embedded in your daily experience. What makes this particularly fascinating is the timing. We're living through what many spiritual traditions recognize as a pivotal moment in human evolution, a period where consciousness itself is shifting to higher frequencies. Thoth has identified certain souls who incarnated specifically during this era, not by accident but by design. These are what ancient wisdom keepers would call Atlantean souls, beings who lived during humanity's previous golden age and have returned during this crucial transition period. Now, before you dismiss this as fantasy, consider the archaeological evidence we keep uncovering about advanced ancient civilizations. The precision of the pyramids, the sophistication of ancient astronomical calculations, the mysterious technologies that we're only beginning to understand, these point to previous periods of human advancement that somehow ended catastrophically. According to Thoth's teachings, many souls who experienced Atlantis' destruction have reincarnated now because they carry cellular memory of what went wrong before. These Atlantean souls share specific characteristics that Thoth recognizes. They possess natural intuitive abilities that can't be explained by conventional education. They find themselves questioning societal structures that others accept without thinking, not from rebelliousness, but from a deep knowing that humanity is capable of so much more. They're drawn to ancient wisdom traditions, feeling an inexplicable familiarity with concepts that should be foreign. Most importantly, they carry a persistent sense of having a greater purpose, even when they can't articulate what that purpose might be. The ancient Egyptian mystery schools developed sophisticated methods for identifying these advanced souls. Initiates weren't chosen randomly, they were recognized through specific signs and behaviors that indicated previous spiritual development. The priests of Thoth understood that certain individuals arrived already prepared for advanced teachings, carrying knowledge from previous incarnations that just needed to be awakened rather than learned from scratch. Thoth's modern 1111 system operates on the same principle, but adapted for our current technological age. Instead of temple initiations, he uses the digital clocks, timestamps, and numerical displays that surround us constantly. When you repeatedly notice 1111, you're receiving confirmation that your consciousness has developed sufficient spiritual maturity to begin receiving direct guidance from higher dimensional beings. This explains why some people completely dismiss synchronicities while others feel deeply moved by them. It's not about intelligence or education, it's about soul age and spiritual development level. Younger souls, those earlier in their evolutionary journey, simply don't have spiritual sensitivity to perceive these communications. They're not inferior, they're just at a different stage of development, focused on learning lessons that more advanced souls have already mastered in previous lifetimes. When Thoth begins transmitting 1111 sequences to you, he's essentially saying, you're ready for the next level of your spiritual education. This isn't about ego or feeling special, it's about responsibility. Advanced souls incarnate during pivotal periods specifically to anchor higher consciousness on Earth, to help prevent humanity from repeating the same mistakes that led to previous civilizations' destruction. The selection process also involves testing your response to these initial contacts. How do you react when you notice 1111? Do you brush it off as coincidence, or do you feel a deeper stirring of recognition? Do you seek to understand the meaning, or do you dismiss it as superstition? Thoth observes these responses because they indicate your readiness to receive more advanced spiritual downloads. What's particularly remarkable is how this process mirrors the ancient Egyptian concept of Ma'at, the principle of truth and cosmic order. Thoth, as the recorder of truth, can perceive which souls have developed sufficient alignment with universal principles to handle powerful spiritual information without being corrupted by it or using it for selfish purposes. The repeated 1111 sightings indicate that you've passed this initial evaluation. The numerical sequences serve as activation codes, beginning to download specific information into prepared consciousness. Each time you notice 1111, you're not just receiving a message, you're receiving a transmission that activates dormant spiritual DNA, awakens ancient memories, and prepares your consciousness for direct communication with higher dimensional intelligences. If you're experiencing frequent 1111 synchronicities, understand that you've been chosen for a reason. Thoth has identified you as ready for advanced spiritual teachings that will prepare you for your role in humanity's conscious evolution. This selection process is just the beginning. Once Thoth has established contact through these numerical sequences, he begins transmitting increasingly specific information tailored to your unique spiritual mission and the particular challenges you came here to address. What if I told you that the souls seeing 1111 aren't just randomly chosen? They're ancient Atlanteans returning to Earth during humanity's most critical crossroads. This revelation changes everything about why you're here and what your true mission involves. Thoth wasn't just observing Atlantis from the sidelines. He was there, walking among the crystal spires and energy temples, serving as the civilization's primary wisdom keeper. But here's what most people don't understand about Atlantis. It wasn't destroyed by some natural catastrophe. It fell because its people made the same devastating choice our civilization faces today. They chose technological advancement over spiritual evolution. Picture this. Atlanteans had mastered technologies that make our smartphones look like stone tools. They could manipulate matter at the atomic level, harness crystalline energy that powered entire cities, and communicate telepathically across vast distances. Sound familiar? We're developing artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and quantum computing at breakneck speed. But just like the Atlanteans, we're racing ahead technologically while our spiritual development crawls behind. Thoth watched this unfold with growing alarm. He saw brilliant minds creating incredible innovations while their hearts remained closed to higher consciousness. He witnessed social stratification where the technologically elite controlled everyone else, much like how tech billionaires shape our reality today. Most troubling, he observed environmental destruction as Atlanteans extracted massive amounts of energy from the Earth without considering the consequences. But Thoth did something extraordinary during Atlantis' final centuries. He identified and documented specific souls who maintained their spiritual integrity even as their civilization crumbled around them. These weren't the political leaders or technological innovators. They were the healers, the consciousness researchers, the bridge builders who understood that true advancement required balancing material progress with spiritual wisdom. These souls carried a unique energetic signature, what we might call spiritual DNA. Thoth embedded this signature with a specific frequency sensitivity, particularly to numerical sequences that held sacred geometric power. The sequence 1111 became their primary recognition code because it represented the perfect balance between material and spiritual realms, 4 pillars of manifestation creating a gateway between dimensions. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Thoth has been orchestrating the return of these Atlantean souls throughout history, but especially during periods when humanity faces similar crossroads. The Industrial Revolution brought back some. The nuclear age called forth others. But our current era, with its combination of artificial intelligence, environmental crisis, and spiritual awakening, has triggered the largest return wave in recorded history. You might be wondering how to recognize an Atlantean soul. They carry distinctive characteristics that set them apart. First, they have an inexplicable understanding of technology, not just how to use it, but how it could be developed more consciously. They often feel frustrated by current technological applications because they intuitively know better ways exist. Second, Atlantean souls possess natural healing abilities they can't fully explain. They might find that plants respond unusually well to their touch, or that people feel calmer in their presence. Some discover they can sense energy fields, or feel the emotional states of others without any formal training. Environmental sensitivity marks another key trait. These souls feel physical discomfort in polluted areas, experience deep emotional pain when witnessing ecological destruction, and often feel compelled to live more sustainably than their circumstances might normally require. It's as if they carry cellular memories of watching their homeland sink beneath the waves due to environmental catastrophe. Perhaps most significantly, Atlantean souls carry what I call consciousness memories, deep knowing about the nature of reality that doesn't come from books or teaching. They understand concepts like parallel dimensions, energy manipulation, or collective consciousness as if they've studied these subjects for lifetimes, because they have. But here's the challenging part about being a returning Atlantean soul. You often feel like you don't quite belong in this time period. Modern life feels simultaneously too slow and too chaotic. You see solutions to problems that others can't perceive, but struggle to communicate these insights in ways current society accepts. You might feel an urgent sense that humanity is running out of time to make crucial choices, even if you can't articulate exactly what those choices involve. This is where Thoth's 1111 trigger becomes crucial. When Atlantean souls see this sequence repeatedly, it's not just a general spiritual awakening call. It's a specific activation of their ancient memories and mission. The frequency literally awakens dormant neural pathways connected to their pre-incarnation planning and soul purpose. The mathematical precision of 1111 creates what quantum physicists might recognize as a resonance field. For Atlantean souls, this resonance unlocks access to the Akashic records of their civilization, not just personal memories, but collective wisdom about what works and what leads to destruction when developing advanced societies. Thoth embedded additional layers within this trigger. Each time an Atlantean soul notices 1111, they're receiving data downloads about current planetary conditions, guidance for their specific role in humanity's evolution, and energetic support for the challenging work ahead. This explains why 1111 sightings often coincide with major life changes, career shifts toward more meaningful work, or sudden clarity about personal mission. But recognition comes with profound responsibility. Atlantean souls aren't here for personal spiritual development alone. They're here as bridges between ancient wisdom and modern consciousness. They carry the cellular memory of what happens when civilizations prioritize power over wisdom, technology over consciousness, and individual gain over collective well-being. Your repeated 1111 experiences aren't coincidental spiritual encouragement. They're Thoth's way of saying, remember who you are. Remember why you came. Remember what you know about guiding civilizations through transformation without destruction. The parallels between Atlantean society and our current world aren't accidental. They're cyclical patterns that repeat until humanity learns to transcend them. We're at the exact same choice point Atlantis faced. Will we use our advancing capabilities to create a more conscious civilization? Or will we repeat the same mistakes that led to their downfall? This recognition transforms everything about your spiritual journey. You're not just working on personal enlightenment. You're part of an ancient plan to help humanity successfully navigate its greatest evolutionary leap. The 1111 portal Thoth created doesn't just connect you to higher guidance. It opens doorways to specific spiritual realms where this crucial work unfolds. When the ancient Egyptians mapped the cosmos, they understood something that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Reality exists in layers, like an infinite onion of consciousness. Thoth, as the architect of these dimensional blueprints, didn't just record this knowledge, he embedded access codes into the fabric of time itself. The sequence 1111 represents one of these codes, a frequency key that can unlock doorways most humans never even suspect exist. You see, those repeated 1111 sightings aren't random synchronicities. They're invitations to explore what the ancient Egyptian priests called the seven houses of being, distinct dimensional realms that correspond to different levels of consciousness and spiritual development. Each realm operates under its own laws, offers its own gifts, and presents its own challenges. Thoth designed 1111 as a master key because souls who recognize this pattern have already demonstrated they're ready to begin the journey between worlds. The first realm, what Thoth calls the physical plane, is where most of humanity remains trapped in unconscious slumber. This isn't the material world itself, but rather the limited perception of it, the realm where people believe that what they see with their physical eyes represents the totality of existence. When you first started noticing 1111, you were already beginning to step beyond this dimensional prison. The physical plane serves as a training ground, but it was never meant to be a permanent residence for awakened souls. Moving beyond this foundation, we encounter the astral realm, a dimension that ancient Egyptian dream priests accessed through carefully orchestrated meditation practices. Modern sleep researchers are finally catching up to what these initiates knew thousands of years ago. During REM sleep, consciousness literally travels to different dimensional frequencies. When you begin working with 1111 as a meditation focus, you'll often find your dream life becoming incredibly vivid and prophetic. This isn't imagination, you're accessing the astral realm, where time operates differently and where future probabilities can be observed and influenced. I've worked with individuals who, after consistent 1111 meditation, began receiving detailed information about future events through their dreams. One woman started seeing specific stock market movements 3 weeks before they occurred. Another began having conversations with deceased relatives who provided guidance about family situations. These experiences aren't supernatural. They're natural functions of consciousness, operating from the astral realm's expanded perspective. The third dimension Thoth reveals is the mental sphere, where thoughts possess creative power that would seem impossible from our physical perspective. Ancient Egyptian temple inscriptions describe priests who could manifest physical objects through focused mental intention. Modern quantum physics is beginning to validate these accounts through experiments showing how conscious observation affects particle behavior. When your 1111 meditations reach the mental sphere, you'll discover that reality becomes remarkably responsive to your focused intentions. This is where things get fascinating from a practical standpoint. People working with 1111 frequencies often report that their manifestation abilities accelerate dramatically. They think about needing a specific book, and within days, someone gives them that exact title. They visualize a career change, and unexpected opportunities begin appearing. This isn't wishful thinking. It's consciousness operating from a dimensional level where thought and reality interact more directly. The fourth realm, the causal dimension, is where karmic patterns become visible and workable. Ancient Egyptian texts describe this as the Hall of Two Truths, where souls could perceive the deeper currents of cause and effect that shape their experiences across multiple lifetimes. When you access this dimension through 1111 meditation, you begin understanding why certain patterns keep repeating in your life, and more importantly, how to transform them at their root level. Many people discover that their attraction to 1111 stems from karmic connections to ancient Egyptian temple work. They begin remembering past life experiences of working with Thoth's teachings, explaining their immediate resonance with these concepts. This remembering isn't just interesting, it's practical, because it reconnects you with spiritual abilities you've developed over many lifetimes. The Buddhic plane represents the fifth dimension, where individual love expands into universal compassion. Ancient texts describe this as the realm where personal desires dissolve into service to the greater good. Souls accessing this level through 1111 work often find themselves drawn to healing professions or humanitarian causes, not from obligation, but from a genuine expansion of their caring capacity. The sixth realm, the atmic level, is where individual consciousness begins merging with universal wisdom. This is the dimension ancient Egyptian priests called becoming one with Ra, not losing individuality, but expanding it to encompass cosmic perspectives. People touching this level through consistent 1111 practice report experiences of downloading information about scientific discoveries, artistic creations, or solutions to global problems. Finally, the logoic realm represents the seventh dimension, where souls participate directly in cosmic creation. This is the level where Thoth himself operates, where consciousness works as a co-creative force with the fundamental principles governing reality. Accessing this realm requires years of preparation, but it represents the ultimate purpose of the 1111 invitation. Throughout these dimensional journeys, Thoth serves as both guide and protector. Ancient Egyptian texts describe him as the guardian of the threshold, ensuring that souls don't advance to levels they're not prepared to handle. This is why the 1111 experiences unfold gradually. Thoth is carefully monitoring your readiness for each new dimensional access. The practical implications of this dimensional work extend far beyond personal spiritual development. Souls who establish stable connections to these higher realms become conduits for solutions to both personal challenges and global crises. They develop what ancient Egyptians called the eyes of Thoth, the ability to perceive problems and their solutions from expanded dimensional perspectives. Regular 1111 meditation creates what I call dimensional anchoring, maintaining conscious connection to these higher realms while remaining grounded in physical reality. This isn't about escaping the world, but about bringing higher dimensional wisdom into practical application. You become a bridge between worlds, capable of accessing cosmic intelligence for very earthly purposes. The key is understanding that these dimensions aren't distant locations, they're frequencies of consciousness available right now, embedded within your current experience. Thoth designed 1111 as a tuning fork, helping your consciousness find the precise frequencies needed to access each realm safely and effectively. The spiritual awakening process that Thoth initiates through 1111 encounters carries profound risks that most modern seekers never consider. When your consciousness begins expanding beyond the physical realm, you're essentially opening doorways that have remained sealed for good reason. Thoth understood this danger intimately. He witnessed firsthand how unprotected spiritual exploration contributed to Atlantis' catastrophic downfall. Think about what happens when you suddenly become visible to dimensions that previously couldn't perceive you. It's like walking through a neighborhood at night with a bright flashlight. You illuminate your path, but you also announce your presence to everything lurking in the shadows. This is why Thoth embedded sophisticated protection protocols directly into the 1111 frequency itself. During Atlantis' final centuries, spiritual practitioners became intoxicated with their expanding abilities. They could manipulate matter, communicate across vast distances, and access knowledge from higher realms. But in their excitement, they ignored the ancient safeguards that earlier generations had established. They threw open the doors to spiritual dimensions without understanding what else might walk through those same portals. Thoth identified three primary categories of spiritual predators that target awakening souls. The first type consists of earthbound entities, consciousness that should have moved on after physical death, but became trapped in lower vibrational states. These beings exist in a perpetual state of hunger, desperately seeking the life force energy that awakening humans naturally radiate. They're drawn to 1111 experiences like moths to flame because your expanding awareness creates an energetic beacon they can detect from great distances. These earthbound entities operate through attachment and gradual energy drainage. You might notice unexplained fatigue after meditation sessions, sudden mood swings that don't match your circumstances, or intrusive thoughts that feel foreign to your normal mental patterns. They're particularly skilled at mimicking the voice of your own intuition, suggesting spiritual practices that actually weaken your natural defenses while appearing to enhance your development. The second category poses an even greater threat: false spiritual guides offering power instead of wisdom. These entities present themselves as ascended masters, angels, or enlightened beings eager to accelerate your spiritual growth. They promise shortcuts to psychic abilities, secret knowledge that will elevate you above ordinary humans, and exclusive access to cosmic mysteries. But their true agenda involves corrupting your spiritual development by inflating your ego and separating you from heart-centered consciousness. Genuine spiritual guides never offer power as an end goal. They understand that authentic spiritual advancement naturally develops compassion, humility, and desire to serve others. False guides deliberately target your ego's desire for specialness, convincing you that you're chosen for some grand mission that requires you to distance yourself from family and friends who wouldn't understand your elevated consciousness. The third and most dangerous category consists of what ancient Egyptian mystery schools called shadow brotherhoods, organized networks of negative entities working systematically to corrupt human spiritual evolution. Unlike individual predators seeking personal gain, these collectives operate with sophisticated long-term strategies designed to derail humanity's collective awakening. Shadow brotherhoods infiltrate spiritual communities by positioning their human agents as teachers, gurus, or channelers. They promote spiritual philosophies that sound enlightened on the surface but contain subtle distortions designed to lead seekers away from genuine liberation. They encourage practices that create dependency on external authorities rather than developing your own direct connection to divine guidance. Thoth's protection system operates on multiple levels simultaneously. The 1111 frequency itself functions as a high vibrational barrier that repels lower entities while attracting authentic spiritual assistance. When you encounter 1111 repeatedly, you're not just receiving a message, you're being surrounded by a protective energy field that maintains clear boundaries between dimensions. But Thoth also teaches specific protection techniques through direct transmission during 1111 meditation. The first involves invoking divine light not as empty visualization but as conscious connection to the source frequency that created your soul. This light doesn't just surround you, it emanates from your core being, creating an energetic signature that genuine guides recognize while causing negative entities to retreat. The second technique focuses on establishing energetic boundaries through discernment rather than fear. Thoth shows you how to evaluate spiritual experiences based on their fruits rather than their dramatic presentation. Authentic spiritual contact increases your capacity for love, strengthens your connections to others, and inspires service to humanity's well-being. Corrupted spiritual influence creates isolation, superiority complexes, and obsession with personal power. The third protection involves maintaining heart-centered consciousness during all spiritual exploration. Your heart chakra serves as a natural filter that can distinguish between frequencies aligned with divine love and those operating from ego-based agendas. When spiritual experiences or guidance fail to resonate with your heart's wisdom, Thoth teaches you to pause and reassess rather than proceeding based on mental excitement alone. Ancient Egyptian mystery schools required initiates to master these protection principles before accessing higher teachings. The Hierophants understood that unguarded spiritual development inevitably led to corruption, regardless of the seeker's initial intentions. Modern spiritual culture often dismisses these safeguards as outdated superstition, but Thoth's 1111 system resurrects this ancient wisdom for contemporary awakening souls. The warning signs of spiritual deception remain consistent across centuries. Any guidance that encourages you to abandon relationships with people who genuinely care about your well-being deserves immediate suspicion. Authentic spiritual growth strengthens your capacity for healthy human connection rather than requiring isolation from loved ones who supposedly vibrate at lower frequencies. Similarly, teachings that promote feelings of superiority over others indicate corrupted spiritual influence. Genuine awakening reveals the fundamental interconnectedness of all consciousness. inspiring humility and compassion rather than spiritual elitism. When you find yourself judging others as unawakened or spiritually inferior, you've likely been influenced by entities seeking to inflate your ego as preparation for deeper manipulation. Perhaps most importantly, practices that emphasize accumulating personal power rather than developing wisdom and compassion represent clear spiritual deception. True spiritual advancement naturally increases your desire to serve others and contribute to collective healing. When spiritual development becomes primarily about what you can gain rather than how you can give, you've strayed from the authentic path. Thoth's 1111 protection system creates a foundation of spiritual safety that allows you to explore higher dimensions without losing your grounding in heart-centered consciousness. But this protection works in partnership with your own discernment and commitment to genuine spiritual principles. The safeguards are available, but you must choose to activate and maintain them through conscious participation in your own spiritual development. As your awareness expands under Thoth's guidance, you begin recognizing that spiritual awakening serves a purpose far greater than personal enlightenment. The protection protocols aren't just keeping you safe, they're preparing you to discover and fulfill your specific spiritual mission in humanity's current evolutionary crisis. In the sacred halls of ancient Egyptian temples, priests would undergo profound initiation ceremonies where specific numerical sequences would appear at crucial moments, carved into stone walls, reflected in water bowls, or manifested through the precise alignment of celestial bodies. These weren't coincidences. They were Thoth's method of awakening each soul to their divine purpose, their spiritual mission for that lifetime. Today, Thoth uses 11 inches exactly the same way. But instead of temple walls, these numbers appear on your phone, your clock, your computer screen. As the eternal keeper of the Akashic records, those divine archives containing every soul's journey across countless incarnations, Thoth maintains detailed knowledge of why you chose to incarnate at this specific time in human history and what you agreed to accomplish. Here's what most people don't realize. The timing and frequency of your 1111 experiences aren't random. They're precisely calibrated to your soul's readiness to remember and activate your spiritual mission. Think about when you first started noticing 1111. Was it during a period of questioning your life's direction? A time when you felt called to something greater but couldn't quite grasp what? That's Thoth beginning the activation process. The patterns of your 1111 experiences reveal the nature of your spiritual mission with remarkable precision. If you're destined to be a healer, you'll often see 1111 during moments when someone around you is experiencing emotional crisis or physical pain. Your soul recognizes these as opportunities to remember your healing gifts. I've tracked dozens of cases where people noticed this pattern, seeing 1111 just before a friend called in distress, or glancing at the clock at exactly 11 while walking past someone who clearly needed help. Those called to be spiritual teachers typically encounter 1111 when they're exposed to new spiritual concepts or ancient wisdom. You might see it right after reading something profound, or just before discovering a book that changes your perspective entirely. Thoth is confirming that you're meant to bridge these teachings to others, to translate complex spiritual truths into accessible wisdom. Lightworkers, those souls tasked with raising collective consciousness, frequently see 1111 during global events or collective challenges. During the pandemic, many lightworkers reported seeing 1111 multiple times daily, especially when consuming news about global suffering or social upheaval. This wasn't coincidence. It was Thoth activating their awareness that they're here to help humanity navigate these transformative times. But here's the fascinating part. Thoth designed the 1111 system to do more than just remind you of your mission. It actually activates dormant memories and abilities that your soul needs to fulfill its earthly purpose. Ancient Egyptian texts describe this as the awakening of the Ba, the activation of your soul's divine knowledge within your human consciousness. In our current era, Thoth is activating several specific types of spiritual missions through the 1111 phenomenon. Many souls are being called to bridge ancient wisdom with modern science, to help humanity understand that spirituality and technology aren't opposing forces, but complementary aspects of human evolution. If you find yourself fascinated by both quantum physics and meditation, or drawn to both cutting-edge research and ancient texts, this might be your calling. Others are being activated to develop new healing modalities that combine traditional techniques with innovative approaches. These souls often see 1111 when researching alternative healing methods or when experiencing their own profound healing breakthroughs. Thoth is guiding them to become pioneers in humanity's understanding of holistic wellness. A significant number of souls are being called to create conscious communities, spaces where people can gather to explore spirituality, practice authentic living, and support each other's growth. These community builders often see 11 when feeling isolated, or when envisioning better ways for humans to connect and support each other. Perhaps most crucially, many souls are being activated to help humanity navigate technological advancement with spiritual wisdom. As artificial intelligence and digital connectivity reshape human experience, these souls are meant to ensure we don't lose touch with our spiritual essence in the process. Recognizing your spiritual mission through 1111 often coincides with major life changes that might initially seem disruptive or challenging. Career shifts that don't make logical sense but feel absolutely right. Relationship transformations where you naturally drift away from people who no longer align with your evolving purpose. Geographic moves to places that support your mission, even when you can't rationally explain why you need to be there. This is your soul aligning with its true purpose. And while it can feel overwhelming, it's actually evidence that Thoth's activation process is working. The ancient Egyptians understood that spiritual awakening requires shedding old identities and patterns that no longer serve your highest purpose. But with mission activation comes profound responsibility. These souls aren't being awakened just for personal evolution. They're being called to serve the collective advancement of human consciousness. When you recognize your spiritual mission through 1111, you're essentially remembering your soul's commitment to help humanity evolve during this critical period in our species' development. Thoth provides ongoing guidance through continued 1111 experiences, helping you navigate the challenges that inevitably arise when living your spiritual mission. Pay attention to what's happening in your life when you see 1111 after your initial awakening. These moments often provide specific guidance about your next steps, confirmation when you're aligned with your purpose, or gentle course corrections when you've drifted from your path. The responsibility can feel daunting, but remember that Thoth chose you for this mission because your soul has the exact combination of gifts, experiences, and wisdom needed to fulfill it. Your unique perspective, shaped by all your incarnations and life experiences, is precisely what the world needs right now. As we move deeper into this exploration of Thoth's guidance system, you'll discover that recognizing your spiritual mission is just the beginning. The next layer of Thoth's 1111 communications reveals something even more practical and immediately applicable to your daily life, the specific manifestation abilities that become available once you've aligned with your spiritual purpose. When the ancient Egyptians spoke of magic, they weren't talking about pulling rabbits from hats or supernatural parlor tricks. They understood something that modern science is only beginning to rediscover: of consciousness isn't just a byproduct of brain activity, it's the fundamental creative force that shapes physical reality. And nowhere is this principle more powerfully encoded than within the 1111 phenomenon that Thoth has woven into the fabric of existence itself. The hieroglyphs in Thoth's temple at Hermopolis contain detailed instructions for what they called speaking things into being, literally using focused consciousness to restructure matter and energy. But here's what makes this absolutely fascinating. These weren't mystical beliefs or primitive superstitions. The Egyptian priests were operating from a sophisticated understanding of what quantum physicists are now calling the observer effect, where conscious observation actually influences the behavior of subatomic particles. Thoth, as the architect of Hermetic wisdom, knew that reality is fundamentally mental. The famous axiom, as above, so below, isn't poetic metaphor. It's a precise description of how consciousness at the mental plane creates corresponding effects in the physical plane. When you encounter 1111, you're receiving a direct transmission from Thoth about your own reality creation abilities. And more importantly, you're being given access to a specific window where these abilities become exponentially amplified. Think about what's actually happening during those 1111 moments. You're not just noticing a time on a clock, you're entering a brief but incredibly potent state where the electromagnetic field around your body synchronizes with specific cosmic frequencies. The four ones create what Thoth called a manifestation gateway, where the normal barriers between thought and physical manifestation become permeable. Ancient Egyptian texts describe this as the moment when the veil of Isis becomes transparent. The priests at Karnak and Dendera temples used this same principle during their reality-shaping ceremonies. They would gather at precisely calculated moments when celestial alignments created similar gateway conditions. Historical records show they successfully influenced weather patterns to end droughts, manifested healing for entire communities, and even altered the flow of the Nile during critical flooding seasons. These weren't miracles, they were applications of consciousness technology that Thoth had taught them. But here's where Thoth's teachings become intensely practical for your life right now. During your next 11/11 experience, you're being invited to participate in this same reality creation process. The key lies in understanding the three-phase manifestation sequence that Thoth embedded within these moments: alignment, amplification, and anchoring. Alignment happens first. This is when you consciously merge your personal will with divine will. Most people try to manifest from ego desires, essentially fighting against the natural flow of universal intelligence. Thoth teaches that true manifestation power comes from discovering what the universe wants to create through you, then aligning your intentions with that higher purpose. During 11/11, ask yourself, what wants to emerge through my life that serves the highest good of all? Amplification occurs when you harness emotional energy to power your intention. The ancient Egyptians understood that emotion isn't just feeling. It's literally energy in motion, the fuel that propels thoughts from the mental realm into physical manifestation. But here's the crucial distinction Thoth makes. The emotion must be generated from gratitude and love, not from desperation or fear. When you feel desperate for something to manifest, you're actually broadcasting the frequency of lack, which creates more lack. Instead, generate the emotional state of already having received what you're requesting, feeling genuine gratitude for its emergence. Anchoring completes the process by maintaining unwavering faith in the desired outcome while simultaneously surrendering attachment to how and when it appears. This paradox confuses many people, but Thoth explains it perfectly. You must be absolutely certain that your intention is already fulfilled in the quantum field of possibilities, while remaining completely flexible about the specific form it takes in physical reality. Modern quantum physics research at institutions like Princeton and Stanford is validating these ancient principles in remarkable ways. Studies on what scientists call consciousness-correlated anomalies show that focused human intention can measurably influence random number generators, electronic devices, and even the decay rates of radioactive materials. The Global Consciousness Project has documented how collective human consciousness creates detectable changes in quantum field fluctuations during major world events. But Thoth emphasizes crucial ethical boundaries around these reality creation abilities. The power to influence physical reality through consciousness comes with profound responsibility. These techniques should never be used to manipulate others' free will or to manifest purely selfish desires that could harm others. The universe has built-in safeguards. Attempts to use manifestation abilities for ego gratification or control typically backfire, creating exactly the opposite of what was intended. I've observed 3 common mistakes that souls make when first discovering their reality creation abilities through 11/11 practice. First, they try to manifest from ego desires rather than soul purpose, essentially asking the universe to serve their personality's wants instead of their spirit's mission. Second, they attempt to control specific people or outcomes, forgetting that true manifestation works by creating conditions for the highest good of all involved. Third, they become impatient with divine timing, not understanding that the universe operates on a much larger timeline than human personality desires. The most powerful manifestations actually come through surrender, holding your intention clearly while trusting completely in divine timing and wisdom. Thoth teaches that the universe is always conspiring to fulfill your soul's highest purpose, but it sees the complete picture while you only see fragments. Sometimes what appears to be a delayed manifestation is actually the universe orchestrating perfect conditions for something far greater than you originally imagined. Regular 11/11 practice gradually increases your manifestation abilities as you learn to maintain higher vibrational states consistently. Each time you use these moments for conscious reality creation, you're literally rewiring your brain's neural pathways and expanding your electromagnetic field's capacity to influence your environment. The Egyptian priests understood this as growing the ka, expanding the spiritual energy body that interfaces between consciousness and physical matter. What makes this particularly relevant right now is that humanity is entering what Thoth calls the Great Manifestation, a period when collective human consciousness will literally reshape civilization itself. The 1111 experiences you're having aren't just personal development opportunities. They're preparation for participating in the conscious creation of humanity's next evolutionary chapter. Pay attention to the specific visions, ideas, or inspirations that come through your 1111 moments, because these are preview glimpses of the reality that wants to emerge through your unique contribution to this planetary transformation. When you understand that Thoth exists outside the constraints of linear time, something remarkable becomes clear about those 1111 moments you've been experiencing. He isn't just responding to your current spiritual state, he's communicating based on what he perceives about humanity's probable futures. And what he sees unfolding right now is nothing short of extraordinary. We're living through what Thoth describes as the Great Awakening, a critical transition phase that began accelerating around 2012 and will reach its crescendo within the next 2 decades. This isn't some vague spiritual concept, it's a measurable shift in human consciousness that Thoth has been tracking for millennia. The increasing frequency of 1111 synchronicities worldwide isn't random. It's evidence that his divine timeline is unfolding exactly as prophesied. But here's what makes this period so crucial. Humanity stands at a crossroads between 2 dramatically different futures. One path leads to spiritual evolution and a golden age of cooperation. The other leads to technological self-destruction and the collapse of our current civilization. The choice isn't being made by governments or corporations, it's being made by individuals like you who are receiving these 1111 transmissions. Thoth's prophecies reveal that the souls experiencing these synchronicities are the same ones who lived through Atlantis' final days. You were there when advanced technology, divorced from spiritual wisdom, ultimately destroyed that civilization. The 1111 phenomenon is Thoth's way of awakening your cellular memory of those events, ensuring that humanity doesn't repeat the same catastrophic mistakes. In ancient Egyptian texts, there are specific references to this exact time period. They describe it as the era when the children of Atlantis would return in new bodies to guide humanity through its greatest transformation. These aren't metaphorical children, they're souls who carry the wisdom gained from witnessing both the heights of Atlantean achievement and the depths of its destruction. If you're seeing 1111, you're likely one of them. The prophecy describes a new form of human consciousness emerging during this transition, individuals who seamlessly integrate rational thinking with intuitive knowing. These evolved humans won't see logic and spirituality as opposing forces, but as complementary tools for solving complex global challenges. They'll approach climate change, social inequality, and technological development from a place of spiritual wisdom combined with practical action. Thoth's vision of humanity's potential golden age is breathtakingly specific. He foresees communities organized around cooperation rather than competition, where individual success enhances collective well-being rather than coming at others' expense. Educational systems will develop both intellectual and intuitive faculties, teaching children to think critically while also accessing their inner wisdom. Technology will be guided by spiritual principles rather than profit motives, creating innovations that heal rather than harm our planet. In this future timeline, the artificial separation between science and spirituality dissolves completely. Researchers studying consciousness will work alongside mystics exploring meditation states. Engineers designing new technologies will consult with healers who understand energy systems. The result will be breakthrough solutions that our current fragmented approach could never achieve. But Thoth's prophecies also reveal the challenges that must be overcome during this transition. The environmental crisis we're facing isn't just about carbon emissions or pollution, it's a reflection of humanity's disconnection from spiritual principles. Social inequality isn't just about economic systems, it's about power structures that benefit from keeping people spiritually unconscious and therefore easier to control. The resistance to this awakening is real and organized. There are forces, both human and non-human according to Thoth's communications, that have invested tremendous energy in maintaining humanity's current state of spiritual slumber. They understand that awakened humans are impossible to manipulate, control, or exploit. Your 1111 experiences represent a direct threat to their agenda. This is why your role in this transition is so crucial. Every soul receiving 1111 messages has specific gifts and missions that contribute to manifesting the positive timeline. Some are here to develop new technologies guided by spiritual wisdom. Others are meant to create educational systems that honor both intellectual and intuitive development. Still others are tasked with healing work that helps people release the trauma and programming that keeps them locked in lower consciousness. What's fascinating about Thoth's prophecies is that they're not fixed destiny. They're probable outcomes based on current trajectories. The future he describes becomes more likely as more souls awaken to their true nature and begin acting from spiritual wisdom rather than ego-driven desires. Every time you honor a 11:11 moment by pausing to connect with your higher guidance, you're literally voting for humanity's positive timeline. The tipping point Thoth describes requires only a small percentage of humanity to fully awaken, somewhere around 3 to 5% of the global population. We're already approaching that threshold, which explains why the 11:11 phenomenon has become so widespread in recent years. Each awakened soul creates a ripple effect that touches hundreds or thousands of others, accelerating the overall process. But time is a factor. The window for this smooth transition to occur naturally is limited. If humanity doesn't reach the tipping point within the next 15 to 20 years, the shift will still happen, but it will likely involve more dramatic disruptions, economic collapse, environmental disasters, and social upheaval that force spiritual awakening through crisis rather than choice. This is why Thoth's communications through 11:11 often carry such urgency. He's not trying to create fear, but he is emphasizing that your awakening and service can't be postponed indefinitely. The souls who volunteered to incarnate during this transition period, including you, came here specifically to help tip the scales toward the positive timeline. The practical steps for aligning with Thoth's guidance start with recognizing that your spiritual development isn't separate from your contribution to humanity's evolution. They're the same thing. Every breakthrough in your own consciousness creates space for others to experience similar breakthroughs. Every fear you heal in yourself removes that frequency from the collective field. Every time you choose love over fear, cooperation over competition, or wisdom over ego, you're actively participating in the prophesied transformation. Recognizing Thoth's 11:11 communications marks the beginning of your true spiritual work, not its completion. The ancient Egyptian scribes understood that receiving divine knowledge was merely the first step. Transforming that wisdom into lived reality required dedication, practice, and unwavering commitment to serving something greater than oneself. Your daily relationship with these sacred moments becomes the foundation of everything that follows. When 11:11 appears, stop whatever you're doing and enter into conscious communion with Thoth's presence. This isn't about making wishes or hoping for miracles. It's about establishing a direct line of communication with one of history's most profound teachers. Create a simple ritual, breathe deeply, acknowledge the synchronicity allowed, and ask what guidance is being offered in that moment. The responses often come as sudden insights, emotional shifts, or unexpected opportunities that appear within hours or days. The Hermetic principles that Thoth revealed through the Emerald Tablet become your operating system for navigating reality. As above, so below isn't philosophical poetry. It's practical instruction for understanding how your inner state creates your outer experience. When you master your thoughts and emotions, you literally reshape the world around you. Study these principles not as abstract concepts, but as engineering blueprints for consciousness itself. Developing your intuitive abilities requires the same dedication you'd give to learning any sophisticated skill. Set aside time each morning for what the ancient temples called listening practice. Sit quietly and ask Thoth to help you distinguish between the voice of your ego and the whisper of divine guidance. The ego speaks first, loudest, and with certainty. True spiritual guidance often arrives as gentle knowing, unexpected perspectives, or solutions that serve everyone involved, rather than just your personal desires. Your vibrational state determines the quality of guidance you can receive. Thoth's wisdom operates at frequencies that require you to maintain clarity, compassion, and genuine service to others. This doesn't mean perfection. It means conscious awareness of how your thoughts, words, and actions either elevate or diminish the spiritual atmosphere around you. When you catch yourself in judgment, fear, or manipulation, acknowledge it honestly and choose differently. The challenge every awakened soul faces is integrating spiritual understanding with practical responsibilities. Your family, career, and daily obligations don't disappear because you've discovered your higher purpose. Instead, they become the training ground where you practice applying ancient wisdom to modern circumstances. Approach your job as an opportunity to model integrity and conscious leadership. Treat difficult relationships as assignments in compassion and boundary setting. View financial challenges as lessons in trust and creative problem solving. Your role as a bridge between worlds requires tremendous sensitivity and wisdom. People can sense authentic spiritual development, but they're also highly resistant to feeling preached to or judged for their current level of awareness. Share your insights through your example rather than your explanations. When others notice the positive changes in your life and ask questions, that's your invitation to plant seeds of possibility. Answer honestly about your experiences without insisting they adopt your path. Creative expression becomes one of your most powerful tools for transmitting Thoth's wisdom. Whether through writing, art, music, teaching, or simply the way you conduct conversations, you're constantly offering others glimpses of expanded possibility. The ancient Egyptian mystery schools used stories, symbols, and ceremonies to convey truths that couldn't be captured in direct instruction. Find your unique way of translating timeless wisdom into language your particular community can understand and appreciate. Building connections with other awakened souls isn't about creating exclusive spiritual clubs, it's about establishing support networks for the challenging work of transformation. Thoth emphasized that humanity's evolution requires collective effort. When conscious individuals work together, their combined influence creates ripple effects that reach far beyond their immediate circles. Seek out others who share your commitment to growth and service, but remain open to finding wisdom in unexpected places. The isolation that often accompanies spiritual awakening is one of your greatest tests. As you begin seeing through illusions that still captivate most people, you might feel disconnected from former friends and family members. This loneliness is temporary but necessary. You're learning to find your primary source of fulfillment in your relationship with divine consciousness, rather than external validation. Trust that as you embody your authentic self, you'll naturally attract relationships that support your highest expression. The weight of responsibility can feel overwhelming when you realize your role in humanity's spiritual evolution. Remember that Thoth chose you for this work because you already possess everything needed to fulfill it. Your doubts, fears, and perceived limitations are part of your human experience, not disqualifications from divine service. The most effective messengers are those who remain humble and relatable while carrying profound wisdom. During humanity's current transition period, maintaining hope requires connecting with the larger timeline of spiritual evolution. Thoth's perspective spans millennia, and what appears as chaos or regression from our limited viewpoint often represents necessary clearing of old patterns to make space for new possibilities. Your continued 11/11 experiences serve as regular reminders that you're supported, guided, and exactly where you need to be in this unfolding process. The joy that comes from living in alignment with your spiritual mission is unlike any satisfaction you've experienced from external achievements. When your daily actions serve both your personal growth and humanity's awakening, every moment becomes meaningful. Challenges transform from obstacles into opportunities for deeper understanding. Relationships become vehicles for mutual evolution. Even mundane tasks carry the energy of sacred service. Each soul who recognizes Thoth's 11/11 communications has already demonstrated the courage and readiness required for this path. You wouldn't be receiving these signs if you weren't prepared to act on them. Trust the process, embrace the responsibility, and step fully into your role as a conscious messenger of ancient wisdom in our rapidly changing world. When awakened souls work together under Thoth's guidance, carrying forward the timeless principles of truth, wisdom, and service, we create the foundation for humanity's next evolutionary leap. Your individual transformation contributes to a collective awakening that will reshape civilization itself. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it,"